Okay, this video is to help you with the distance formula homework. So in the video, the distance formula you should have learned is d equals, and then we do the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. And where this comes from is this is like our A, and this is our B, and this is C. It's from the Pythagorean theorem, so we have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And if we want to get c by itself, we just take the square root on both sides. So we would get c equals the square root of a squared plus b squared. But instead of having sides, we just have points. So this is our x's and this is our y's. So we find the difference between the x's, the difference between the y's. We square that, add it together, and take the square root. And that tells us the distance between those 2 points. So I'm going to go through a few of these examples. I'm going to label this one as x1, y1, and this one's x2, y2. And it doesn't matter which one is which. If I wanted to label this one as x1, y1, and this one's x2, y2, it wouldn't make a difference. So we're going to say d equals the square root of x2 minus x1, so that's -1 minus 7, plus y2 minus y1 squared. So right here we have subtracting a negative. So I'm just going to write a plus sign right there, because when we subtract a negative, it's just like adding. So we have the square root of -8 squared, because that's -1 minus 7, that's -8, plus -7 plus 8, that's just 1 squared. So we have the square root of 64 plus 1, because -8 squared is 64, plus 1 squared is just 1. So that gives us the square root of 65. And if I type that into the calculator here, I'm going to make this smaller. The square root of 65 is just 8.06. That's the distance between those 2 points. Okay, on the next one, I'm going to label this one as x1, y1, and this is x2, y2. And remember, it doesn't matter, you could switch those if you want. So we have d equals the square root of x2 minus x1. So we have -2 minus -8 squared, plus y2 minus y1. So that's -2 minus -2 squared. I'm going to change both of these to plus signs, because when you're subtracting a negative, you can it's just like you're adding. So we have the square root of -2 plus 8 is 6. And then -2 plus 2 is just 0. So I'm not even going to write anymore for that part. So we have the square root of 6 squared, which is 36. That tells us that the distance between those 2 points is just 6. Okay, I'm going to do one more example. So we have x1, y1. This is x2, y2. So we have d equals the square root of x2 minus x1. So that's 3 minus 4 squared. And then y2 minus y1, we have -1 minus 4 squared. So 3 minus 4, that's just -1. And then -1 minus 4, that's -5. -1 squared is 1. -5 squared is 25, so we get the square root of 26. And one thing I want to make sure that you guys do is if you put in here the square root of, or sorry, I did that wrong. If you do -5 squared, it's going to tell you it's -25, because it thinks what you're saying is -5 squared. 5 squared is 25, and so it makes it negative. But in the calculator, you have to put the -5 in parentheses, just like we have it on the paper. and then do the squared, and it'll tell you that it's 25. So if you come up with any issues, then make sure that you're putting your numbers in parentheses, just like we have over here. So it's -5 in parentheses squared, that's 25. So now we can do the square root of 26. So that tells us that it's 5.099. So I'm just going to put 5.1 because that's what it would round to. Okay, good luck on this one.